Hi, and welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insights and expertise so we can all grow together. I am your host, Heidi, and I'm the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we drive revenue for companies by making sure they are seen as the authority and go-to expert in their industry versus just another product or service. And I'm beyond thrilled to be bringing you my guest today because every day I believe is a special day, but today is an extra special day because not only is she amazing, but she's also a dear friend. And I've watched her business grow over the past over a year now, and she's exploding in the market, and she's just somebody that is inspiring to me. So thank you for joining me, Olga, and I'm excited for you to be here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting.
So for those of you listening to with me today, I am joined by Olga Pechnenko with Revenue Hire. So my first question for you today, Olga, is can you start out by telling us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your journey?
Sure. So I'm Olga, and company is Revenue Hire that I started 12 years ago. And we basically help growing companies hire sales talent that can actually sell. So companies don't have to spend time, money, reputation, resources on the wrong sales hires because those are very costly. So we help companies with that. We mostly work in the B2B space. I'm actually an immigrant. I came to this country 21 years ago. And American dream, America was always on my list of countries where I wanted to live as a woman and create and build my American dream. And so my kids could have a better life. So I came here at 19 with $100 and just wanted to take over the world. And this is the perfect country to do that. And so I was born actually in Kazakhstan, which is south of Russia. And then my family moved to Russia when I was 11. And then I came here by myself when I was 19. So my whole family stayed there in Russia, and I go visit them when I can. But to kind of start my story, I started as an intern at this translation company. And then I got promoted very quickly into sales. And then I guess they thought I'll be good at it. And then after that, I became the CEO of that company. That was a 45-year-old company. At 24, I became the CEO. And my biggest problem at that company was I could figure out how to hire everybody except for salespeople. So that was my biggest challenge back in the day. I think I went through 3 sales teams. So clearly I was the problem. And after about 3 mishired sales teams, I said, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And so what happened is I hired a sales specific company to train me to do that. And then our success just went through the roof. And so once the translation company got sold, I started this company 12 years ago. And because I wanted to help other growing companies with this pain, that there's nothing more painful than hiring somebody thinking they're amazing. And then 3 months later, once the honeymoon is over, they're not performing, they're not delivering, or yet worse yet, they make you look really bad to your prospects. So that's kind of what I'm on a mission for.
Oh, wow. I love it. I was going to ask you what inspired you to start it, but you just shared that with us. So
Yeah,
thank you for.
it's a personal pain. It was a big personal pain for me. And I'm the kind of person when something's not working, I know I'm the problem and I had to figure that out. And so the solution was actually simpler than I thought, but it's very counterintuitive to what we're taught about traditional hiring.
Yeah, and when you're in it, it's not always easy to see it, right? It's
Right.
from the outside. Looking from the inside, from the outside in, we're like, oh my gosh, the answer was so easy. But when we're in it, and that's our biggest pain point, it's never as easy as we think it is. So, can you explain how Revenue Hire helps businesses scale their sales teams, and what is the unique approach that you take compared to traditional hiring methods?
So I'll never forget the moment. I was still running a translation company, and I remember we were hiring another salesperson, and my assistant would print out like the resumes were like the stack was this big, and I remember looking at those resumes thinking, "Oh my God, like we have so many people. Like the salespeople are everywhere. There's never a problem. I can introduce you to 100 today." The problem that I was looking at was like, how do I know who's good and who's not?
Mm,
Right. And so you go through 100, there's only going to be statistically about 10 that are actually pretty good. Well, how do you know which one is good and which one is not? So that was my first kind of question in my head that I remember. Like, how do I know that? And then how do I interview them to make sure they're a good fit for the business? Because they could be the most fantastic salesperson at Dell or some big company, but then you bring them to a smaller company and then they flop because there's not a lot of resources, or they have to be, more entrepreneurial and all that stuff. So you have to kind of keep in mind a lot of that stuff. So what really sets our process apart is that the whole process is built like a sales process. And candidates they're used to sort of the interview questions that you can find online. So you sort of prepare to answer them. Well, our questions are kind of putting that 180. So they have no idea what's coming because we have our agenda that we're evaluating them against what we think is a good salesperson. And then we're watching how are they selling to us without even knowing that they're selling. They can say I'm a great salesperson, but then they're doing things in the actual process that you go, really? You're really going to do that in the sales process with the prospect? Wow, thank you for showing me that. And I'm keeping you away from our client. And so that's kind of what is unique. You can't use it with any other hiring position, but on salespeople, you have to do something that shows you who they are from the moment you get engaged with them.
Wow. So you have your whole system planned from when you meet these people and your own specific method for figuring out who is actually a good salesperson and who's not, which is important because you're bringing these on to your specific clients. So that leads me to what are the biggest mistakes that companies are making when they're hiring sales professionals, and how can they avoid making these mistakes?
The biggest mistake I see companies make is that their definition of what a good salesperson is very different from the actual definition of a good salesperson. And so the first thing I ask the potential client, a lot of them come to us, they already made a lot of mistakes, is I ask what their definition of a good salesperson is. And then I ask them, are you open to hear a different definition? Because if I'm going to bring you somebody who is not what you think they should sound like or look like, and you're going to say no to me, like, what's the point of you hiring us, right? So what makes a great salesperson, there's three buckets. So that's what we'll look at. Traditionally, if you look at the hiring process, they only look at one kind of like, can they do this? What's the track record? It's all of their kind of like activities, like their resume. What does that look like? But there's two other ones. So the first bucket we're looking at is their sales DNA. And basically it's like, how are they built? What's their mindset like, right? So if their mindset does not have the five things that we're looking at, let's say if they think $20,000 is a lot of money, but you're selling a product that costs $20,000, well, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to ask for that amount because they think it's too much, and who's going to be crazy enough to buy this? Because they will never spend that much money in their head. Right. Or if they want to be liked, that's in their mindset. They're going to ask all the easy questions to the prospect, and they're not going to ask for the sale, and they're not going to really convert that sale into something. They don't have thick skin. So that's all comes in the DNA. So we're measuring that right off the bat, like literally the first 10 seconds of a call that we're having with them. Then the second bucket is the actual activities. So do they know how to do their job? Can they cold call? Can they qualify? Can they convert? What kind of sales cycle they're dealing with? Like, what is that? So everybody can ask those questions. If you want to, like, you can just chat GPT them and like, is this a good fit? What questions should I ask? But with that, the mindset, it's kind of like, yeah, it looks like could be good, but I don't know. I don't know what's inside. And so you have to understand what's inside. And that's what people show us in the beginning and throughout the whole process. So the first, the second, and the third one is what's their work ethic. So do they know how to plan their work and actually get the results? Or are they going to be filling in their CRM system during work hours where they should be prospecting and making calls? So I know it sounds really counterintuitive, but asking questions about that shows you everything you need to know about what kind of work ethic they have. Are they going to do the right things at the right time? Or they're just going to waste their time and it's like, well, I met my quota for the day, I'm out. So those are the three things that makes a great salesperson. And that's a big mistake that the companies make, is that they're only interviewing on the middle and they're sort of leaving the other two behind.
Wow. Okay. So you've shared with us what the mistakes people are making. So now those of you listening, the business owners out there, you've Now, no, don't make those mistakes. So now they're in the hiring place, the hiring phase. They've moved through the buckets. They've determined who they want to hire. How can they ensure that their new sales hires are ramping up quickly? Because at the end of the day, we want those people producing. So how can they make sure that their sales team or their sales hires are ramping up quickly and start generating revenue effectively?
So it depends on if the company has a really solid training in place. Usually they have some sort of onboarding. But onboarding is great, but when it comes to salespeople, you gotta also have a sales onboarding. So let's say the company is hiring the first or second salesperson, and I guarantee you they don't have the sales onboarding in place, right? So they're kind of hoping that they're gonna know what to do. Well, with those salespeople, you gotta know that like what activities, that's like what's your playbook, like as you as the owner, like if you're hiring your first salesperson, like what activities do you do, right, in your time, and what does that look like, and what would that look like on a full-time basis? And now you're going to create that playbook that they need to start following, right? So like you can't just expect them to know because they don't know your business, they don't know what you're selling. You gotta sort of like show them the way. And then you got to be super strict about holding them to the activities because activities lead to results, right? So if you just expect them after a month to deliver you the quota attainment without investing any kind of training in that, you're going to be disappointed. So look at how many calls they're making, how many touches they're doing, how many people they're contacting, and then how many they're qualifying. Some of the CEOs actually show up and try to help close those deals. So that's for the companies that have almost no sales training or no sales onboarding, and it's a lot of them. So because how do you get from no salespeople to some salespeople? That's kind of important. And then the companies that do have sales training on board, in place, they usually, what I see, they spend a lot of time on the training and not a lot of time on the coaching. And so it's kind of like once they're on the phone, like listen to it and tell them what the feedback, what are they doing wrong? What are they doing right? So that way you can constantly sort of hone on that. And there's not a lot of role playing that's happening that needs to be happening more. So it sort of depends like what stage of the company is on the onboarding. But if you're thinking you're just going to hire somebody and they're going to do it for you, you're going to be disappointed because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, those are such good points because at the end of the day, like we need to have a system for people to enter, right? So they're clear because you may be clear on what your expectations are, but they need to be clear on what those expectations are and really setting up your team for success, not just
Yep.
giving them training and throwing them out there to fend for themselves. And then they're not meeting the levels that you are expecting them to meet or exceeding them. And they're going, well, wait a minute, I didn't really understand that. It wasn't clear. And like you said, coaching along the way, having that support system, when you're part of a team, you want to feel supported. You want to feel like your people are behind you and they want to help you succeed or see you
Right.
succeed. So definitely be supporting them and having that coaching. I think that's fantastic.
Well, and the good thing to add there is that the way you made a good hiring decision is that a solid salesperson, they love being held accountable.
Mm.
So they will call you out, be like, "Hey, okay, so I want to make this much money this month. How do I get there?" They'll come to you and they'll ask you. And make sure like if they're not asking you questions, it's probably not a good sign. A good salesperson, they would want to understand how this works. They want to be coached and they want to be told like, hey, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there. Let's work through that. But that's like a little tell. If they're being too quiet, not asking questions, that's usually not a good sign. Kind of
That's a
like a
good.
toddler being too quiet, something's going on.
Oh yeah, you better find them
Right.
fast because you're
Yeah.
into something. Something's amiss. And yeah, that's great because that's so very true because you need to be open and available for those questions, not get frustrated. Be okay, how can I support you? Because if they're not, like you said, if they're not asking questions, then that's when you should be worrying. The people that are asking questions, make sure that you have people in place that can support them and answer those questions so those people can thrive. Because at the end of the day, those are your champions. Those are the people that are going to help you get to your revenue goals that you want to achieve. So make sure that you have
Yeah.
availability for them.
One of the first questions we ask with the clients that we work with is, have you ever hired salespeople in the past? Because that's a very different conversation. And if they made the mistake, we ask them, what's the playbook? How do you get leads? Are you expect them to get leads? All of that, again, that goes in that second column that I talked about. You need to know all of that because you need to interview for that. You can't say, oh, it's both. You're gonna find leads, and I'm gonna give you leads, and which is great if you give them leads, but then they're expecting that, and then they're like, well, where are my leads, right? So like you're gonna have to really be honest about what your process is, and if you don't have a process, share that and let them help you figure out with some like start somewhere. Any system, any playbook is better than nothing because then you can hone it.
Exactly. Let's let perfectionism out the window. This is part of a conversation I've been having with multiple people
Yeah,
on
just
this
start
podcast. Is
shooting.
like you have to take action, just get something in place, and growth comes with tweaking and making and updating, right?
Yep,
And testing. And you had
100.
said something earlier about, the data, the knowing the numbers. What are the calls? What are the follow-ups? You need to know your numbers and you need to have something in place to be able to track that. So let's talk about the different types of sales teams. So what are the pros and cons of hiring, of business hiring of fractional sales teams versus a full-time sales team? And how would a business know which of those models is the right one for them?
So when it comes to fractional salespeople, I'm not a big fan, and here's why. So you want somebody who's dedicated to your company. They're kind of like all in, and they're not spreading their time between you and like three other clients, for example. Unless you absolutely cannot, you only can pay for like 10 hours, but it's going to be harder for you to see the results. So fractional sales teams in B2B world, I've yet to see that work. With telemarketing, maybe, but I don't think we're talking about those people. I think we're talking about somebody who can, move the needle and help you get to your revenue goal. So if you're serious about adding an extra, let's say $1 million to your revenue next year, you need to hire somebody who's going to be just for you. Now, when it comes to fractional sales leaders, like sales managers and VP of sales, that's a great solution, especially in the beginning when you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of amazing people that are incredible sales managers and sales coaches, and then they can help you at least get your hire and your investment in the right direction. So when it comes to fractional, I see it working really well with sales managers, and definitely I don't see it working very well with salespeople.
Mm. Okay, so now we've all heard what you've been sharing, and thank you for all of your wisdom. Somebody's listening and going, okay, you know what? I think I'm ready. I want to talk to Olga, and I think I should be hiring a sales team. At what stage should a company start thinking about that or start expanding with a sales team? And when they're thinking about that, what should they be considering before they make that decision and jump in?
Okay, so there's a couple paths. I was just talking to somebody last week about this. So there's a couple paths. If you are under 1 million, usually, it's not the super best time to hire for a salesperson. If you're under 500,000, definitely. So the rule of thumb is whatever you invest in salesperson, you should have some kind of return back. So 3 to 4 times. So let's say you invest $100,000 in a salesperson, you're expecting like 3 or 4 times in kind of the bottom line of that. So however that works financially for you, because you don't want to lose money on it, right? So you want your salesperson to actually, good hunters these days, I mean, 60 is a very sort of kind of a good start in terms of their base. And then 70, 75, 150,000, that's like super, a lot of experience and perfect fits. That's just the base. And then usually you look at another half coming from the commission. So if you're paying them 65, you got to expect them to get at least 130 with commissions hitting your goals. So if you do that math, you can see when financially it makes sense for you. That's the first exercise we go through with a client because I don't want them to get somebody on board that they cannot afford yet. But if you really, really want help with filling up your calendar, there's another solution, which is getting an appointment setter for you. And that's usually more junior talent. And their job is just to go and find the right prospects for you, qualify them, get them on your books. And it's a very different pricing model and a different kind of investment in that. So those people who are not ready for the full-blown individual contributor yet, that's the path for them to go and fill out the calendar so they can sell more. And then they can hire an individual contributor who can close deals for them.
So if somebody's listening to you right now and they're like, who are the people that you're looking for that should be reaching out to you to where they're more likely ready for your services?
Our clients, they start around 2 million and more mark because usually the founder is exhausted at that point to sell themselves, and maybe he or she already hired a couple salespeople and they didn't work out. So that's kind of where our sweet spot starts. But I've also talked to prospects like who are beyond that, and like that's the advice I would typically give them. But for our service to make sense and bring somebody who can actually do a good job for you, and that's the sweet spot it starts. And then we've helped half a billion dollar company with their salespeople, so it's kind of going from there.
But so let's talk about a little bit about the sales landscape in 2025. How is sales hiring changing in 2025? Like, what are you seeing, and what should companies be doing to stay ahead of that curve?
Well, that's a big question. So I think with all the AI and all the noise about it, I think it's amazing to use AI. I personally use AI for research, for all kinds of, for scripting, for emails. There's a lot of help for that. But I don't think anything yet compares, especially if you're selling something that's not a $100 deal or, obviously the more money somebody's investing with you, the more they want to actually talk to another person and ask questions. So you've got to have somebody with super high emotional intelligence. So
Mhm.
that's going to be more and more like people that just want to get the deal. I don't see there's a lot of room for them coming forward because like actually people want to be understood and be felt. Otherwise, that's being replaced by kind of technology and all that stuff. What's being automated, it's going to continue being automated, but at the end of the day, people want to deal with people, especially if there's a large amount of money involved in that. I'm also seeing more and more jobs are being remote. So like just having that option of being remote is you can get a talent, that would be incredible versus just trying to get somebody face to face. Now, we do have clients that you have to be face to face because it's a face to face sale. So obviously that's important. But for those that you can be anywhere, remote is being, huge. So those are the kind of the trends that I'm seeing right now is that who are the salespeople that are embracing the technology and augmenting themselves with technology versus just saying, oh, it's good old fashioned, kind of let's keep doing it the way we did. But that's sort of the trend that I'm seeing. Those who know how to use all the tools and be more and more efficient with that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, connections still gonna is key. Connections currency. They still need that interaction with you and that trust factor in order to make those big investments. And I was talking with somebody yesterday, and based on what, piggybacking off what you said, that, when it comes to hiring, a lot of the remote is becoming more and more wanted, right? And businesses need to cater depending on what your service is. If you need face to face, then that's something that your needs entail, and you need to make that clear. But I was talking with someone yesterday. He shared, I would rather have great people wherever they live, not necessarily having to hire somebody from my backyard that isn't as talented as somebody that's more remote. He goes, and I give them that leeway because I need to bring in the talent that I need to have to succeed. So, yeah, very powerful there. And you
Well,
brought
and one thing about remote though is when you are hiring somebody remote, having those numbers that you gotta watch on a daily basis and a weekly basis is super key. We all heard this hire slow, fire fast. Well, yeah, it's a great advice, but you need to know when to let somebody go. You can't
up.
you can't be like, oh, month went by, they didn't hit their quota, bye bye. That okay, well, why didn't they hit it? Like you need to know, you need to have those numbers. And it's very clear to see who's working, who's not working. So for
Yeah.
this to work, you need to have a lot of transparency and accountability on both sides of actually delivering what you need to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. So you brought up AI, Olga, and I was going to ask you, how is AI sales hiring and training, and what role do you see it playing in the future of revenue growth? Is it only going to get more involved?
I think so for sure. But again, like so AI and I just tried DeepSeek the other day. All the noise about it, and it looks pretty amazing. So the AI is only going to get better. Like it's just going to be better and better and better. We personally in our company we created bots that help us automate some things that we do, and so it's only going to grow from here. I don't write any emails without kind of running through AI anymore because I just want to make sure I get the point. So there's all these things, but for training, it's a great tool to have, but at the end of the day, like nothing compares to role playing with real humans
Mhm.
because it's one thing to ask a question to AI and, so tell me about, when you're looking to make that decision and AI will answer it for you. But it's very different to ask that question to a human and feeling the pressure that you're feeling. And so you're gonna have that role playing, it still has to be human. AI has to supplement that, but like at the end of the day, practicing and how do you actually say things in front of the human and getting that reaction and building that rapport, I just don't see how it's going to happen anytime soon with robots.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So, Olga, somebody's listening and they're like, I want to connect with her, with this woman. How do they reach you? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, so you go to our website, hire.com, and you'll see there's a little giveaway. If you're listening to the podcast, it's $1 million question. Basically, what question do you have to ask yourself before you hire a salesperson? That will save you a ton of money. So that's my little gift for you for listening. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm very active. So I have my own podcast, Get Me Someone Who Can Sell. So we talk to salespeople who can actually deliver and sell. And so you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
Yeah, she's very active there, and definitely check out her her podcast. And I love the name of it, by the way. And go to
Thank you.
revenuehire.com. Yes, connect with Olga. She's amazing, as you can see.
Thank you.
And I couldn't recommend her any more highly. She's amazing. So thank you, Olga, for spending time with me today. This has been such a pleasure.
Oh my God, I loved it. Appreciate that. And thanks for all you do. You're amazing.
Thank you, Olga. So if you're feeling your business is blending in and you're ready to grow your visibility, be seen as the expert in your space and scale to the next level, then go grab our Spotlight to Scale blueprint at spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. Thank you again, Olga, for being here with me today. Please, if you're listening and you're like, I've got to learn more about this amazing, incredible woman, then go reach out to her, Pechenko. Olga Pechenko. I love your last name. And go to revenuehire.com and also go check her out on LinkedIn. Thank you again, Olga, for being here with me today. Thank you for listening.
Anytime.
Oh, we're going to bring you back then.
Bye.
And
Would
thank you for
love it.
joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.